Hello, I'm Andrew Pritchard. Thank you for watching today's Corn Belt Regional Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. We'll start off here looking at the satellite picture on Tuesday morning as the sun comes up and illuminates the Midwest. There's a couple things I wanted to point out. First, we've got a very weak front sagging through the region here across the eastern part of the Corn Belt here, just bringing some cloud cover, but also bringing a few very light snow flurries that really aren't even showing up on radar. So we had some snowflakes flying here in Champaign for a little bit just after sunrise, and maybe some very light snow flurries pushing for the rest of the day across southern Indiana, southern Illinois, and then perhaps into parts of Ohio. The other thing you see here when the sun finally comes up is this bright white shading here. You know, we're seeing mostly clear skies across the Midwest. This white that shows up on the satellite picture, that is fresh snow cover from the last couple of storm systems. Much of the Corn Belt still blanketed in snow, and more is coming, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. Here's a look at the jet stream right now. We've got this big trough over the Great Lakes, and that's pumping in some cold air to the Corn Belt. The coldest air located to the north, well below zero in Montana. Single digits across the northern plains, teens across the rest of the Corn Belt here, just very cold air, even freeze warnings along the Gulf Coast, where it has been warm for the last few weeks. So everyone getting in on the cold right now, but we do have a bit of a shift coming, and we'll talk about that here in a moment as well. First, we got to talk about Thursday. You know, we're watching a big pattern shift. We're kind of talking about this major storm system over the weekend already, but some areas are going to see some light snow on Thursday. And we'll see this little system come through here, and it tracks across kind of the central Corn Belt from South Dakota, Nebraska, across Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana. There's a bit of disagreement as far as how much snow this is actually going to produce here. There you can see it. Again, I'll slow it down so you can see the timing on this as we get into Wednesday evening. Now we're into Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. We see this snow kind of taking shape across South Dakota and Nebraska. We'll go through the day on Thursday. If you're in central Illinois, this is midday Thursday. We've got some snow finally falling. And then in Indiana, it's later in the day, Thursday evening into the overnight. Some disagreement I mentioned here. Here's the high-resolution NAM model that we just watched the precipitation animation from, and it's got a swath of generally 4 to 6 inches from northern Nebraska, southern South Dakota, into Iowa, where it trails off a bit, maybe talking 2 to 4 inches in parts of southern Iowa through central Illinois. If we look at the GFS ensemble here, kind of looking at 2 to 4 inches again from Nebraska across southern Iowa into central Illinois. We'll look at the European model here, which is kind of holding back. It's the most conservative model right now that we've got, with 2 to 4 inches across northern Nebraska. And then really talking about just a light coating as you get into southern Iowa, central Illinois, southern Indiana. And then we can look at our friends here at the National Weather Service, where they've got a similar picture here. The highest snow totals looks like it'll fall here early in the event across southern South Dakota and northern Nebraska. That's where we may see 4 to 6 inches. I think as you get into central Iowa, central Illinois, we're talking more 2 to 4 inches. And then as you get into central Indiana, probably closer to that 1 to 2 inch threshold there. But I mentioned we've got a shift. That's our Thursday snow. But what about the weekend here? We see this big trough kind of push off to the east. We see a ridge settle in. That'll let us warm up a little bit. But then we see a trough develop over the western U.S. And when we see that, we shift back into an active phase here across the central plains into the Midwest. And there you see it on the right side here, our precipitation type loop. You can watch it here. High pressure, you see Thursday's system get through, we warm up a little bit, and then as we get into the weekend, low pressure system developing over the central plains, likely around Kansas there, and then lifting into the Midwest here. That's going to mean more heavy snow for parts of the upper Midwest, and where we think the heaviest snow right now is going to fall. At this range, you know, I don't want to talk about specific amounts. It's a little bit, tricky. We still have some uncertainty there, but we can look at the European model, the ensemble probability of more than 3 inches of snow falling through the weekend here, and we see that highest probability from the northern plains into the upper Midwest, where we've seen a lot of snow lately. So South Dakota and North Dakota, maybe northern Nebraska there, getting into Minnesota and Wisconsin, and then eventually into the UP of Michigan, and maybe northern Michigan getting into that as well. And then we can take it up a notch, looking at the probability of over 6 inches of snow falling, and we still see pretty high probabilities there across South Dakota, parts of Minnesota, and maybe even North Dakota there into northern Wisconsin. So certainly have the potential for another significant snowfall here, greater than 3 to 6 inches, and that's going to be confined to the northern plains and the upper Midwest. A little bit further south when we get into Missouri, Illinois, Kansas, perhaps Indiana, Ohio. That's where we're looking at liquid precipitation here. We'll be talking about rain and the chance for thunderstorms, and then even further south across Kentucky and Tennessee, maybe southern Missouri, southern Illinois. It's early, but again, we'll have to watch this one for the chance of some severe weather. You know, it is March now. We're getting into the season. These big low pressure systems, these big storm systems, they are going to be eventually bringing the potential for some strong to severe thunderstorms as we get into the spring. Total precipitation here as we go through the weekend. So this is looking at both Thursday and our major weekend system. And we see the heaviest rain, again, going to be falling over the Mid-South. This is an area that's really just seen repeated rain. So Kentucky, Tennessee, southern Missouri, and Illinois, kind of in that Ohio River Valley there and south corridor. That's where we're talking another round of, maybe 2 inches of rain here. And it just continues to look like this will be the pattern at least over the next 1 to 2 weeks. So, in the Mid-South, we're getting close to what would be early planting time, and it just looks like that's, not going to be happening. You can hope for a miracle, but right now the pattern just doesn't look like it's going to favor anything like that. It really looks like we're going to be talking about a flood risk as we get further into the spring. And then the same thing holds true across the upper Midwest. Another round of heavy snowfall, but that's heavy snow that eventually is going to have to melt as we start warming up, as we get deeper into March. So a lot of snow to melt across the upper Midwest, a lot of rain falling on already saturated soils across the Mid-South. So it just looks like we're setting the stage for a spring that we'll be talking about flooding across much of the Corn Belt. And here, I mentioned that the pattern, it holds on like this. Here, I'll play it out for you again. We see the shift here, and then that West Coast trough just continues to reload. You can watch it here is the weekend system. Next week, we're watching already another system, possibly midweek. So it looks like, just every 3 to 4 days, we'll see one of these big storm systems crossing through the Midwest. As always, Eric's going to have a much bigger update on the evolution of the next 1 to 2 weeks in our Thursday morning ag forecast video. And you can catch your next regional forecast right here on Friday morning. Thank you.